In mathematics, we often study structures, which consist of a collection of elements of the same type, for example, sets, monoids, groups, rings, and many others, as well as mappings between those elements, such as set functions, group homomorphisms, and ring homomorphisms. In these structures, it is often possible to define a composition mapping for any two mappings. For example, for a mapping F from element A to element B, and a mapping G from element B to element C, we can define the composition of F and G directly from element A to element C, known as G after F, which corresponds exactly to applying the mapping F and then the mapping G. For example, we can compose any two set functions or group homomorphisms. And not only that, but when we compose them, the composition mapping that we get often satisfies the definition of the structure that we're studying. For example, the composition of group homomorphisms is a group homomorphism, and the composition of set functions is a set function. It is exactly these types of structures that category theory was designed to study. Category theory is sometimes called abstract function theory, because although we may not know the exact structure that we're working in, for example, whether f and g are set functions, group homomorphisms, ring homomorphisms, or something else, as long as the structure that we're working in satisfies these compositionality properties, as well as a couple of other properties, we can use category theory to study them. Thus, informally, a category can be thought of as all of the objects within our structure, as well as all of the morphisms between the objects in our structure. One important note here is that if we talk about all of the objects being sets, for example, we know that due to Russell's paradox, we cannot have the set of all sets. Therefore, the collection of all of the objects in our category must, in some cases, form a class. The difference between a class and a set being that a class cannot be a member of another class or of a set, whereas every set is a member of another set. Let's now look at the formal definition of a category. A category C consists of obj C, which is all of the objects in C which may or may not form a proper class. Next, for any two objects, A and B in C, we can define the home set from A to B in C, which is just the set of all morphisms which go from A to B in C. And when it's helpful, we write these morphisms with a subscript where the domain is on the right, A, and the codomain is on the left, B. Next, every object A in C must have an identity morphism, 1A, associated with it. That is, for all morphisms from A to B, 1B composed with that morphism gives you the morphism back, and 1A composed with that morphism gives you the morphism back, on the left and right side respectively. Next, the composition property that we discussed comes into play. That is, for any morphism from A to B, F, and morphism from B to C, G, we must have a morphism in the home set from A to C, which is G after F, the composition of F and G. And finally, all morphisms within the category are associative. The definition of a category is very general, and many mathematical structures fall under the definition of a category. A few which are not too difficult to show are the category set, with objects as sets and morphisms as set functions, the category mon, of all monoids and monoid homomorphisms, the category group of all groups with group homomorphisms, the category vect F of all vector spaces over a given field F with the linear transformations between them, the category ring of all rings with ring homomorphisms between them, and the category field of all fields with ring embeddings between them. We'll conclude with a couple of more unusual examples of categories, the first one being the formalization of a single group G as a category, which we might call curly G. The important thing to note here is that the group G consists of a set with individual elements as well as an operation on those elements. However, it does not make sense in the context of a category to talk about objects having elements, because although the objects of a category may be set-like objects, such as sets or groups, they may not be, and therefore in many cases it won't make sense to talk about individual elements of an object of a category. So we need to somehow translate the language of individual elements in G, as well as the group operation on those elements in G, without referring to individual elements in a set. The way we do this is by having only a single object in curly G, a singleton, which we might call star, as well as the only home set in curly G, which will be from star to star, being simply the elements of G when viewed as a group. So we assign for each element in G one morphism going from star to star in curly G. Then we can use the composition of morphisms to talk about the group operation. That is, B after A, when viewed as morphisms, will give the same result as B dot A when applied as a group operation. The final example of a category that we will look at shows the connection from category theory to logic and proof theory. So we can actually take the objects to be well-formed formulas of the propositional calculus, and the morphisms of our category to be proofs which derive one well-formed formula from another. Clearly, proofs can be concatenated or chained in a way which is compositional and associative, and by doing a little bit of extra work, we can see that this will define a well-defined category.